I'm going to have a few comments about the next year and what they look like to me and what some of my priorities are. First, I'd like to start off by, Board, I thank you for your support of Mr. Fox and his past year of presidency. I want everyone to recognize that Mr. Fox now sits down at the end of the row in a position that will be called upon to offer comment first on every issue that requires discussion by this board. And that means both out here and back there. And I would hope that my fellow board members, the public and press that attend this meeting understand that the tone set by the opening comments or the first speaker down there to a discussion are best accompanied by expertise and experience. Mr. Fox has both. Moving forward, it'd probably be a good idea to watch what's happening on the bookends, because that's where the work starts and ends. Next, you know how I've been down there, but my role for the past few years has been the one in the middle that asks the captain obvious questions, and the questions of, I really can't believe he just said that. But by now, I think we're all smart enough to say that sometimes I pitch stuff out there that I think the public needs to know about, and that's a means of supporting transparency. My role as the class clown down there is now over. I am here. My role here is to develop consensus, encourage proper process as we move through the district, the business of our district, which is to educate children, believe that or not. So the clown in the middle role is open. Feel free to fill it, all of you except Mr. Fox. I've already determined what your role is. Okay? Most presidents that I know of organizations or boards have initiatives that focuses that will mark what their legacy, their measurable legacy is at the end of their presidency. Mine will focus on civility and organizational efficiency, and here's what I will ask my board for support of. Let's start with civility. Isn't it odd that I would be the one asking for this? I think it's because I'm the one that needs it the most. But here's my ask to you. I want a civility statement to be read at the onset of every public meeting in which any decision is made in this district. And I'd like to see that brought back to the board for approval prior to the first meeting in February. My suggestion is I have a civility statement that is read for the organization I work for. I don't think it's appropriate to hear, but I think that a statement that's read at the onset of each IEP meeting in this district is a very good framework to begin with, and I would hope that you would take that statement as a foundational piece to the PTO, PTSO, and booster presidents meeting that you will have in January, and have those people edit it and bring that back for board approval. I would hope that the rest of the board would support me in that request, because I think that initiative is really important in setting the tone off to these meetings so we don't have to adjourn for disruptions and the like. Next, I will ask that the superintendent, as part of your ongoing report, provide a brief synopsis of the monthly superintendent's meeting with the site parent groups, again, PTO, boosters, and PTSO. Note that I referenced those three groups individually and specifically. Whatever you do outside of there with other groups, the auxiliary groups, great, but I think those groups represent our constituents' votes as they are most engaged in the district's business. Along those lines, personally, I would be impressed if the summaries of these meetings reflect a focus on an awareness of the strategic plan and how its goals are being implemented and measured. So, for example, in the parent group meetings, we might want to turn to Gold Standard 3, initiatives 3.2 and 3.4. Someone might want to write those two down, because they reflect what those groups are supposed to be doing for the districts. Again, Gold Standard 3, 3.2, 3.4. Let's talk about organizational efficiency. In terms of the agenda, the focus on the fair, which is a future agenda items report you always see at the end of the agenda, is those are average requests for board members or staff to put things on the agenda. I want everyone to recognize that most of our agendas are preset by regulatory and oversight agencies, so 75% of the business we conduct up here with budget, test scores, auditing, and things eat up our agendas. So there's only 25% or so of that agenda left, and I think it's very important that we don't litter that up with things that fall outside of these measures. So I would suggest that if you're a staff member or board members and you want to place an item on the agenda, that the topic being considered falls within one of the 5 elements of the strategic plan and its subplanks. And if it's not, I'm going to kind of wonder why you're bringing that forward and ignoring this, because at the end of my presidency, I'm going to want to know specifically what we have done to move through this plan and show measurable results to this plan. I don't want to get to the end of it and find out there's another fluff manual laying on some executive shelf that never turned into anything. I don't want to waste our time on the board. When you see people asking to have things added to the agenda by knee-jerk reaction, I will ask you, where does that fit in here? And I will react poorly if you can't describe to me where that is. Next, I'm going to ask that on the consent agenda, under the personnel report, there are typically comings and goings of employees. I'm going to ask that any application that has been flown for a position in the district be listed as its own separate thing in the personnel report. So if we have officially posted to fill a position, then please list that at the very beginning, that we have current flyings of positions. I want to talk a little bit about, and this is just for me, I don't speak for the other board members, but if you are a third party vendor or a charter school petitioner, or maybe you're a staff member, there is a food chain in this district, and my food chain goes right to this gentleman. I have 20% share in his role as one employee. These other people have the rest of the share. He is my own employee. He's my only employee, and I don't enjoy people going around the circle and presenting. So if there's something that you think that he's doing illegally, you should call the police right away. Short of that, respect the food chain and do not petition me with your own private interests that are a matter of this board and him. So short of that, I'd like to thank Callie for being serving as the vice president. I will appreciate your support. I very much need your support with my gross ignorance of the educational process. And Tim, I see you've taken the clown role already. Thank you.
The
Tim,
seat's still warm. You just left.
Tim, I'll remind you, you'll need some circus makeup. It will help, but you will be signing a lot of documents in which your name goes to it, and I want to remind you that you have not only the duty but the right to ask for things like when something is to be DSA approved and that type of thing, that your role will involve a little bit of research, and we will all depend on your expertise both as an educator and up here on the board to represent our interests. Brandon, I very much appreciate you being here, and one last time, Mike, I'm always going to very much appreciate your comments and how they open up discussion. So that's it. Okay, one thing I want to understand, and more so it's a Captain Obvious question. It's on the tape somewhere and the press will catch it. I've seen a couple of charters fail, namely one that used to be over in Santa Clarita, and what happened was there was some reorganization going on, and you had one very successful high school suddenly starting to fund busing and some other things. So this CALPAC organization that you belong to, my understanding is that you've taken the structure of the schools and modified it so it's applicable to both Shasta and 1507. And within that, my only question to you is, are the individual, I see that there's 4 authorizers here. Please make the link to our district work on the side. Maybe there was a glitch that day. But when you have different authorizers involved and you have a big board up here, I want to know that there's enough separation between the board that represents us, where we're not some casualty of some bigger corporate. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So each nonprofit has its own board, and then even within the nonprofit, each charter school that's run has its own budget. So everything is very clear as to which dollars are going to which students, and we don't commingle those, and we keep everything very tight.
So given the number of students that you have at this point, which used to be, I think, the collective of the whole group, and now it's broken down. Again, it's Shasta and 1507. Our legal counsel looked at it and supported what your idea was, that your growth, I asked some questions about your finances and things like that, and I was pleased with your answer. So I just wanted to put that into the record. And that said, Larry, will you verbalize your staff recommendation to us, please?
It's the staff recommendation to approve the Charter Organization Committee collaborative.
So something go on the record here. This doesn't mean to the town council that we're out actively trying to promote development in the community. In other words, we don't we're not in control, just as we're not in control of the power grid, at least I don't think we are this week, of what the county chooses to allow people to develop. There's some input from the town council, but there certainly isn't, we don't have any authority here to tell people you can or cannot develop. But the one thing that we do have that says in the staff report, again, Captain Obvious, the impact on facility needs due to increased enrollment. So that means if somebody builds things here, this watches out for the district that we're not overrun with students, whether it would be a trailer house or Beverly Hills Mansions, whoever would build here. So I understand that to be the case, and we're just being proactive to make sure that those measures are in place. Thank you, Lynn. And your recommendation is?
That the board approve this so that we can.
Couple things, Lynn. It seems to me several years ago there was some fund balance transfers that we were getting letters from the county saying, I wish you wouldn't do that, and now there are no fund balance transfers, so no one's moving money around and juggling things, and I appreciate that you're conservative enough to not have to do that. I want to remind everyone that the charter revenue is increasingly becoming about actual cost recovery for what it costs to do the business of overseeing charters, and it is not a revenue source. It was never intended to be. So there is a glide path going on here. I think getting out of the business of looking to charters for revenue has resulted in a much more measurable means of looking at charters and what their performance is, and actually being able to say, hey, this is real or not. But I'll remind everyone that the model will increasingly go to actual cost recovery. So if you have people providing services, it's simple math and accounting that you see in most public agencies. So that said, I think there's a good focus on organizational efficiency as it's related to capital. Again, always turn to the plan. We did this for a reason, and I think number 5, utilization of fiscal capital, especially 5.1 and 5.2, speaks to how Lynn conducts herself and measures herself in the management of the finances of this district.